Hi everyone. So as we are doing the discriminant function analysis, this is the last video in the series of discriminant function analysis, and in the earlier lecture I have explained you the outputs obtained from our data set until this particular part. Okay, so we were successfully able to understand the discriminant function, which ultimately is the need in the discriminant function analysis. What is the idea in discriminant function analysis is to give us a discriminant function which will allow us to make the ultimate classification. Okay, so the discriminant function can be set in our particular data set as di is equal to minus 3.021 plus 0.056 durability for individual eye plus 0.026 into performance of the bike I minus 0.030 looking of the bike. I means ith customer or ith individual in the data set. So that was my discriminant function. Now, once you have the discriminant function with you, this particular discriminant function can be translated into the discriminant score. Okay, so basically using this functional relationship, now you can easily move on to finding out what will be the discriminant score for each customer. So I have information of what the person gave a value on durability, what the person gave a value on performance, what the person gave a value on looking of the bike. Now for each of these independent variables, when multiplied by these weights, also known as the discriminant coefficients, that will give me a discriminant score for that customer. Now, once you have the discriminant score, now you need a guiding rule. So basically the rule which will guide you how to classify your cases. And now we're moving on to this particular table, which is very near to the classification rule called the functions at group centroids. Now imagine in this discriminant functions was formed, for each of the independent variables, you substitute their group means. So I'm saying you go back to this particular table, and for each of the categories, purchase and would not purchase, pick the means. So let's say I'm picking 69, 67 and 39, and I'll substitute these three means in my discriminant function. Okay, and then I'll be able to come up with what? A centroid for the category purchase. Likewise, if you pick the means for would not purchase, that is these three particular means, these are the group means, and substitute them in the discriminant function, you will get the centroid for would not purchase. Okay, so this is like, so how to really say what are centroids? It is nothing but the mean discriminant scores for group 1, that is purchase, and for group 2, that is would not purchase. So a further way of interpreting discriminant analysis results is to describe each group in terms of its profile using the group means of independent variables and finding out the centroids, which are nothing but calculated using the group means and the discriminant function. Now, once you have these centroids, what is the significance? The significance is that the cases, okay, so all those customers whose DI scores, that is the discriminant scores, will be closer to this particular centroid for say purchase, then that person will be classified as a purchaser. What I'm saying is that now when you have a customer stepping onto the store, you ask the customer about the different attribute scores. Let's say the customer answers for durability, then performance, then looking. Then you substitute those values into the discriminant function. You have a DI score, and then the closer that score to this particular centroid or this particular centroid, that person is classified as a purchaser or as not a purchaser. Okay, so the cases with the discriminant scores near, okay, near to a centroid are predicted as belonging to that particular group. Now, there is a furtherance to the centroids also. Once you have these centroids, I can say this is like D1 and this is D2 calculated from my overall discriminant function for DI. So D1 is for group 1, that is purchase. D2 is for the group 2, which is would not purchase. Now, in a two-group discriminant analysis, the classification is indeed beautiful. So basically, you can yourself find this out. So if you take a weighted average of both of these centroids, you can come up with that cutting discriminant score. Okay, we call that as the discriminant score, which acts like a cutting score. Now, if you take a weighted average of these, because I have this as 1.365 and would not purchase is minus 1.365, a weighted average would be 1.365 into how many purchasers? 20 plus minus 1.365 into how many not purchasers? 20 divided by the total 20 plus 20, that is 40. So this particular mean will work out to be 0. Okay, so the weighted average of both of your centroids will work out to be 0, and that is nothing but the cutting discriminant score. Now, this cutting discriminant score is going to ultimately guide the classification. Okay, how come? So, any discriminant score of an individual, that is the customer, which will be greater than 0, will be classified as purchaser. Okay, and any discriminant score which is less than 0 will be classified as would not purchaser. That's even clearer when you come to the classification statistics. Okay, so we are here, and this case I asked SPSS to only display me for the 20 cases. So it has done for the 20 cases, and you can see these are the actual groups. These are the groups predicted by the discriminant function analysis, and what I'm interested in is looking at the discriminant scores. So now I'll compare these discriminant scores with my cutting score. Cutting score came out to be 0. That is the weighted mean of group centroids came out to be 0. And when I compare my discriminant scores with 0, I can classify my customer in one of the two categories. Okay, I'm just teaching you how to do this manually, but even if you don't really want to bother about it, it's okay, because the software is doing it for you, right? So we just discovered that our cutting score is 0, and the guiding light is that any discriminant score for individual 1, say case number 1, is, if it is greater than 0, classify that customer in group 1. If it is less than 0, classify that customer into group 2. It's like that. Okay, so let's interpret it for a few cases. So for my customer 1, the discriminant score using the discriminant function came out to be 1.603, which is greater than 0. So that person is classified into group 1. This is the predicted group, and this is indeed equal to the actual group. So congratulations, we have successfully been able to match the first case accurately. Okay, so the actual group and the predicted group have come out to be the same. Likewise, let's do for a case which is misclassified. So these two asterisks indicate all those cases which were classified incorrectly by your software, okay, by your analysis. So in this particular case, my discriminant score is minus 0.359, and this is less than 0. This is less than 0. So my analysis will put this particular customer in group number 2, but actually that customer was in group 1. So that means this is a misclassification. Okay. As I said, nobody is perfect, neither is your technique. Okay. So there is going to be certain cases where misclassification will happen, and these are given by these two cases with the asterisks. Okay. You can further also have a look at it. And what is this latter part, the cross-validated part? Now, cross-validated means, as you can read out here also, cross-validation is done only for those cases in the analysis. In cross-validation, each case is classified by the functions derived from all cases other than that case. So basically, in cross-validation, what happens is that, for example, for individual 1, when I'm trying to cross validate, what I will do, I will utilize the data for all other individuals, leaving out individual one, and come up with the discriminant function. Okay, I repeat, I will leave out the individual one and find a discriminant function for all other, using all others data set, and using that discriminant function, I will classify my individual one. Okay, so we also call it hold one out classification. So I'm holding one person out and I'm classifying that person on the basis of discriminant function, so obtained using the remaining people. Okay, so this is in a way a very nice way to validate your results. Okay, so this gives a good indication of data result validation. Fine. So we see that in the cross validated fashion, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 misclassified cases. Okay, so this is the actual way of looking that how well is your discriminant function. Fine. So this is like a very good way to actually validate your technique. Okay, so cross validated table also shows that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 misclassified cases. However, in the actual data set, okay, so in the actual original one where we found out the discriminant function using whole of it, so we did not leave out any one, and then we saw that we have 2 misclassified cases. So this is about case-wise statistics. Lastly, we have the most important table of discriminant function as the classification results. We also call this table as the confusion table or the confusion matrix. So this table is used to assess how well the discriminant function works and whether it works equally well for each group of the dependent variable. Okay, so in this particular table, you can see you have original written over here and predicted written over here. That means my rows indicate the original categories, that is the categories which were observed originally in the data set, and my columns indicate the categories which have been predicted by discriminant function. Okay, so let's try to interpret it. This particular side is the count and this is the percentage. So in the original data set, out of the total customers who purchased, that is total was 20, my discriminant function predicts that purchasers are 18 and would not purchase are 2. That means in the total purchasers originally, that is 20, my analysis has correctly predicted purchasers as 18 and incorrectly classified 2 customers as non-purchasers. That means how many cases have been correctly classified? 18 upon 20 into 100. So what would that be? So that would be 90%. So 90% of the total purchasers have been correctly predicted by your discriminant function analysis. Now similarly, we're going to look at for the second group, that is would not purchase. So in would not purchase, we see that in the total customers 20, 18 were correctly classified as would not purchase, but 2 were incorrectly classified. Just the same. So we see that 18 upon 20 into 100 means the percentage of correctly classified cases as in the second group is 90%. So that's here. So 90% of would not purchase customers have been correctly classified. So this is the original data set classification results. This is now the cross-validated result. Just like you had in the classification table 2 sides, right? Likewise, for original, I just explained you. And for this cross-validated results, it is this particular part. So in cross-validated, the percentages are like this. So 75% of the purchasers were correctly classified and 90% of the would not purchasers were correctly classified. So that's how the cross-validation fares. Okay. Now this particular table is also useful in giving you something called as a hit ratio. So this is the hit ratio. Hit ratio means percentage of cases correctly classified. That is total cases which have been correctly classified. So we have 90% of the original grouped cases correctly classified. Where is this coming from? This is coming from here. So 90% purchasers and 90% would not purchasers were correctly classified. So that makes up overall, you can take an average, and that will be 90% of the total basically. Okay. So we have 90% of the total cases correctly classified in the data set. And if we look at the cross-validated data, then that would be 82.5%. Okay, so that was about classification result. It really pays us a lot if we go and see what has happened to the data set. You see this column, this one. So this underscore one is giving you what, as it reads, predicted group for analysis one. So this is the predicted group which has been provided to you using the discriminant function analysis. And you can see, so basically person one, originally who is a buyer, is predicted to be a buyer. Okay, so that's how you can interpret column this one. And what is this column? This column gives you the discriminant scores, the discriminant scores which you were seeing here also. So you see that, so these particular, yeah, so these particular discriminant scores, okay, which I asked SPSS to just display me for 20 people, have been displayed for all of my selection. Okay, so these are the discriminant scores, and we know the score above 0 should be classified as group 1. The scored less than 0 should be classified as group 2, as we can see here also. So this is less than 0, this is group 2, this is greater than 0, this is group 1. Okay, now these are the probabilities. Okay, we asked SPSS to also tell us the probability. So this is the probability of membership of group 1, and this is the probability of membership of group 2. That means there is 98.7% chance that the person will be in group 1, and only a a 0.12% chance that a person will be in group 2. And this is very logically clear. So this person is also classified into group 1. So that fares well. Okay. So that was all about discriminant function analysis. And that's how the discriminant function analysis has helped us achieve our objective. In a nutshell, if I were to really summarize what actually discriminant analysis does, it would go like this. So, in discriminant analysis, the hypothesis you're testing is that there is a linear combination of variables. So, that linear combination comes from here. So, this gives you that linear combination. So, the hypothesis you're testing is that there is a linear combination of variables which, when appropriately weighted, like beta weights, so these are your beta weights, okay, will maximally discriminate. Okay, I repeat, will maximally discriminate between the two groups on the dependent variable, two or more groups basically on the dependent variable, and permit new cases to be classified into the groups. So if you have a holdout sample, you can classify those people into the groups using this information. Now, in this particular model, okay, which we call the predictive discriminant analysis, the discriminant analysis is used to develop a classification rule coming from the centroids. Okay, so this will permit things like classifying people to be put in group 1 or group 2 or whatever the groups you have on the dependent variable. So that's all about the discriminant function analysis, where you have on the dependent variable two categories. Thank you for watching the video.